Bethesda is known for making some of gaming's most beloved open-world experiences with their Fallout and the Elder Scrolls franchises, but they're also equally known for controversies stretching far beyond simple in-game problems. Today we're going to take a look at 12 of these blunders that they wish that you would forget. Glitches. Perhaps Bethesda's most well-known controversy revolves around the fact that they're notorious for poor quality assurance. If you've ever played a Bethesda game, you probably know by now that you can expect some bugs and glitches to pop up along the journey. Bethesda's been known to claim some of these are actually features in the game, prompting plenty of backlash from players who see through such a flimsy excuse for poor coding and testing. Despite many of their games going on to be some of the best-selling and highest-rated titles in video games, these issues continue to plague their titles to this day. QUAKE Champions. QUAKE was one of the titles that launched the first-person shooter genre, so it was a no-brainer when Bethesda decided to revisit it for PC-exclusive QUAKE Champions. But a terrible user experience that included messy gameplay and frustrating imbalances was compounded by a microtransaction-based character system that left the whole thing feeling just like a mess. We'd all probably just prefer Quake 5, Bethesda. Are you listening? Fallout 76. Almost everyone you know probably likes Fallout, so after the incredible success of the prior games, Bethesda figured it was time to start checking out the world of shared world experiences. And that's where Fallout 76 came in, with promises of delivering the core Fallout experience we all knew and loved, but with friends. Except the launch was a disaster. Bugs and glitches plagued the game, and even when players were able to actually play, Fallout 76 just wasn't a good game. It was cumbersome, empty, and totally devoid of the life and excitement that made the series so good to begin with. But perhaps its biggest problem was one worthy of its own talking point. Fallout 76 and the lack of NPCs. Fallout 76 launched without NPCs. It seems almost unimaginable, and yet it's entirely true. Aside from a handful of robots, every encounter in the game was with other player-controlled characters. The people and mutants of previous Fallout games had been memorable, and their stories are what captivated millions of players. The choice to add absolutely zero of them to a new game took away a core pillar of what makes Fallout, well, Fallout. When gamers spoke up, Bethesda's somewhat snarky attitude about the fact made it seem as though they'd viewed players as nothing more than entitled crybabies. They met between a rock and a hard place, however, and ultimately succeeded in improving the game to some degree by the eventual addition of NPCs. Paid mods. Mods have always been a way for savvy PC gamers to expand and change their experience with the games that they play. It's always been free, and it's always been relatively unregulated, giving most people freedom to do just about anything they like, however they'd like to do it. In 2015, Bethesda decided it was a smart idea to monetize modding in Steam, allowing for mod creators to make and sell their mods. In an extremely corporate move, Bethesda would take a nice chunk of that money for themselves, with the modders who did all the work left with a fraction of the profits. The backlash from this shady move was tremendous, and within about a month, Valve and Bethesda shut the whole thing down. Gamers just aren't that stupid, Bethesda. The review policy debacle. In a strange move, Bethesda decided to stop giving out early review copies to the press in 2016. Copies of Doom were sent out less than 24 hours before the release of the game, giving reviewers very little time to invest in the game and gather their thoughts before the commercial launch. It was pretty much as anti-consumer as a policy can get, obviously using it as a way to avoid any negative coverage from impacting sales. And as with many of their other blunders, however, gamers simply didn't buy their excuses. After growing tired of reviews being more focused on their policies than the game itself, Bethesda relaxed a bit with review copies, and I'm sure they wish we'd forget the whole thing. The Fallout 76 bag. As if things with Fallout 76 couldn't get any worse, the Power Armor edition of the game promised players a canvas West-Tech duffel bag, alongside its other goodies. Instead, players were given poorly made nylon bags for their $200. To try to make it up to players, Bethesda offered them a measly $5 worth of money towards in-game items. After enough bad press, Bethesda finally made right on their initial promise and shipped players the appropriate bags 7 months later. Most players had already played and disliked the game by then, however, so it's doubtful that it did much to repair their reputation with very many people. Prey drama. Bethesda attempted to purchase development team Human Head, who at the time was working on a sequel to the underappreciated game Prey. Reports then surfaced stating that Bethesda was thought to have bullied the team by using promises of funding and extensions that they never made good on. Because there was no contractual obligation, Bethesda was said to have failed milestones and raised expectations consistently in an attempt to ruin the progress of the game and make the team more vulnerable. It all fell through in the end though, and Bethesda-owned studio Arcane Studios rebooted the Prey franchise later. It released to critical acclaim, but for those who knew the story, Bethesda's dark history will always loom over the series. Dull Radiant quests. When you're making a huge game, it's pretty smart to find a way to lengthen the experience for gamers to keep them invested even longer. And that's exactly what Todd Howard set out to do when he promised gamers infinite quests with Skyrim's Radiant questing system. But while it did what it said it would on paper, it was an absolute chore in practice. Fake cheers at E3 2019. During their E3 2019 press conference, Bethesda debuted a reboot of an extremely old franchise, Commander Keen. Most of us have never even heard of the series, and yet the audio at the event included uproarious clapping and cheers. However, the crowd didn't seem to match the audio's level of excitement, as most attendees sat in their chairs calmly with little sign of emotion. While it was never officially confirmed to have been faked, comparisons have been made to Todd Howard's announcement of Fallout 4 years prior, when the crowd had a very ecstatic reaction not unlike that heard at the Commander Keen reveal. Things just don't add up here, Bethesda. Nice try. Fallout 4's simpler RPG mechanics. Fallout 4 was an incredible improvement to Fallout 3 in many ways. However, many gamers felt underwhelmed by its relatively simple RPG mechanics. Decisions didn't seem to hold as much weight or affect the game nearly to the same degree, and the dialogue wheel options felt vastly scaled back. A streamlined perk and special system felt like a huge step back from the considerably more detailed customization of the previous games. In simplifying so many of these RPG-based mechanics, it genuinely felt like Bethesda was trying to move the franchise more toward just being another shooter. With so many of these already available, many gamers felt let down by these development choices, but Bethesda remained confident that it had made the right choice. Refusal to adopt a new engine. Although its current form was used to create Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, the fundamentals of Bethesda's creation engine date back as far as Morrowind. Games in those franchises are known for feeling a little clunky and dated, and this is due to the fact that the engine itself just isn't all that good for making modern games. The terrifying part about this is that their upcoming games Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6 are continuing the trend of using it. Bethesda had been known to claim part of the reason is due to the fact that modders have learned and grown with the engine for many years now, but while Bethesda promises updates to the engine for their next-gen titles, we remain uncomfortable with the idea of next-gen games getting stuck on such an old engine. And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily. Also, don't forget to switch on the bell notification icon, that way you don't miss out on any of our videos.